This is the continual evolution of the East Coast beat. This is more from the Diamondback and Scarecrow. Um, Diamondback and Scarecrow is a long time ago. I had an English teacher in high school. He was also my speech coach. And he had entered a story in which you had to write the most Ernest Hemingway type, at the most Ernest Hemingway esque story that you could. It had to be so, you know, typically Ernest Hemingway that, even he would be like, damn. So my professor taught me, or my high school speech coach taught me, or told me about that. Write a Hemingway S story, and then I remember at one point, one of the types of books that my dad had around, because he was a reader, like he read a lot of books during time of his life, and one of the type of books that he would read were those like CIA, DEA, FBI, hostage negotiation fiction books, you know what I'm saying? And he read other types, but one of the types of books, and I always remember thinking, as a soldier that has never pulled the trigger on an enemy, how can I possibly get away with writing a military, soldier story? Like I said, I was a field cook. So it's not going to be any fun to talk about, oh, yeah, well, I mean, it was kind of fun for me, but it was like, we would like my partner Bill, when he became a specialist, he had control of the radio. So he would put on like House of Pain. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, we're listening to Jump Around while I'm cracking 250 bowls of eggs. It's 2 eggs per bowl. So that's 500. That's what we had to start with. And then we had to scramble so many, and then we had to just, so we could do over easies, over mediums, over hard, fried eggs, scrambled eggs, and omelets. Because I was on the egg grill. I was the first cook you would see in the morning. They'd all be standing in line, and they'd be looking at me, and I had my little FTA written on my cook white hat. You know what I'm saying? And they'd come through line, and they'd be like, "Give me this." I remember one time, this one guy, "Give me this." I said, "I'll see what you take." You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't give me anything. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I was the first cook that you would see in the morning. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, how could I write the most possible hardcore military story while have never fired a single round at an enemy? You know what I'm saying? So this is a monologue by Scarecrow, because he speaks to himself in his mind. You know what I'm saying? The night has chilled. The darkness has come. In my life, I have run through these fields. I have even salted the earth. What the people do is no secret. The secret is that they do it with no mind. What was once so familiar becomes forgotten, but a star will shine for 1,000,000 years after its sun has died. And at night, when there are no stars to light our paths, to guide us through our steps, then who will lead the way? Who can suffer to hold the light? They tell me that it's not all black and white, but they still offer me restraints, pills and granola bars for silence. Like I said, when I was in the military, um, the story that I'm writing, or was writing and have stopped, but it was basically, Diamondback is based on a scout. That's I mean, I actually did spend time with a scout. He was a pretty cool friend of mine. That's why I chose scouts, because I have a little familiarity with how they actually act. You know what I'm saying? So Diamondback is a scout that was recruited by in the army. They have CID, Central Intelligence Division, and it's like the super military police. You know what I'm saying? And so CID is the one that will send in undercover agents that are actually, um, law enforcement, military law enforcement. But they're the ones that grow out their hair. They're the ones that, if you hear of a sting operation, it's normally CID. The military police don't really conduct like 6 month long sting operations, but CID will. So, Diamondback is a scout who is ended up going into CID um, as an agent. So he's still pretending to be a scout. He's still a scout, but he's actually CID. And Scarecrow, I haven't figured out exactly. All Scarecrow is Scarecrow. They went out to the field, and it was supposed to be like, just peacekeeping operations, but this happened, that happened. They came under attack. They lost a couple people. Scarecrow survives this and comes out, gets out of the military, but pops back up in Germany, and he pops back up. And like I said, the CIA picks him up, and he's leading Diamondback through the underground. And the first place that he takes him is to this BDSM club where this straight laced Diamondback, I mean, because he's still a soldier, he still has the haircut, you know what I'm saying? But he dresses in a certain way. And, he can break the law as far as he can in order to, make his case, you know what I'm saying? So he's lax and he's loose. And so Scarecrow takes him to a bondage club, and Diamondback ends up talking to this girl, and but he finally admits to Scarecrow one night. I don't know if that was a girl or a boy at all, but I just, it was just so in the middle, and Scarecrow looks at him and says, neither do I. And you get the feeling though that Scarecrow's probably known this girl for like 3 years, and he still doesn't know if it's a boy or a girl. You know what I'm saying? So that was the first part of the story. And then, like I said, at one point I was writing about how they were following a man. Um, but that's the whole thing. Like I said, the bondage story was easy to tell. But yeah, Di- and then but what I the stories that I really like about Diamondback is when he gets out of the military. Scarecrow's only a one shot. Scarecrow only comes up in Diamondback story when he's in the military. After Diamondback gets out, he gets recruited by the CIA, and then he goes back to the States, and then I was gonna write like urban terrorist stuff, you know what I'm saying? But I just lost all feel for it. Like I said, I think the funniest whole part of the story though is, um, you got a bunch of 19, 20 year old kids. Half of them are getting married and having kids. The other half of them are, you know, falling in and out of consciousness with some random girl that they met at a club. You know what I'm saying? And what can I say? I mean, I was in a foreign country. Um, if some local, girl was nice enough to want to bring me into her house and, feed me breakfast, how could I say no? I mean, it's cold in Germany during the wintertime. I mean, I've slept at the train station on the floor because my German teacher said I could, but it's cold, And here I am with some college student. Oh, you're so sweet. Do you want to come stay at my house tonight? My mom will love you. And I'm like, okay. But that was Scarecrow because Scarecrow just kind of, like I said, I'm not saying that I've ever seen anything horrific in war. That's why I can't really write the story. But I do know that when I was in the military, there was, it's not, even though it's very disciplined at times, I mean, there are enough soldiers that do certain things to where, you know, this shit happens, I mean, as some people say, it gets ugly, you know what I'm saying? I fought for everything I had. No one knocked at my door, unannounced, trying to come in and drink a beer and talk shit about, us queers from California. I mean, that shit didn't happen to me, you know what I'm saying? Um, I had a couple guys offer to smoke weed with me, but I was like, I don't smoke weed in the army, you know what I'm saying? I didn't smoke weed in the army. I didn't write letters home. I didn't call nobody. I didn't tell nobody when I was, I'm doing TDY. No, for for 3.5 years, it was complete blackout from the day I entered basic training. I called my dad once to tell him I was getting married. Called him a second time to tell him get me a divorce. You know what I'm saying? So that's the whole thing. That's why I stopped writing the scarecrow part of the story because, like I said, how can I write about all this when I never fired a weapon at a man? I don't know what it's like to kill a man. I mean, I fed an army, but I don't know what it's like to kill a man. So that's why I had to stop writing those stories. Yeah, like I said, Diamondback is such a funny guy, so young and straight laced and like, let's get the job done, coach, because I had that attitude too. Like I said, I still had military training, But yeah, hey, let's go to a BDSM club. Oh, sure, what could possibly go wrong? You know what I'm saying? Well, a lot, I guess. I wasn't ready for that. Plus, like I said, the idea of being told by some 6'3", 260-pound German guy that um, he wants to dance with me, because dance for me means two things. You can either dance or you can fight. And like I said, his first move was to grab me by my throat and push me against a pillar that was, on the dance floor. Because I guess I walked across the dance floor and they must have been playing the wrong song or something. But like I said, so that was my first experience in a legit BDSM club, was getting some big ass. I mean, this guy's hand was so big and he just put it right and he pushes me against the wall. Uh, I think he was either saying, Du willst, do you want to dance with me? Du willst or Ich möchte? I can't remember. I remember I knew what he was saying at the time. And it was basically, I want to dance with you. But I kept thinking, man, I'm too drunk. Like, bro, if you want to dance with me, I'm too drunk. And if you want to fight with me, I'm too drunk. You know what I'm saying? Like, either way, I'm too drunk. So that's why one reason I don't drink. Like I said, that was the night I had my little blackout experiences and everything. And I was like, man, I don't like to drink. You know what I'm saying? But what's the moral of the story? The stars, the light, we see the stars light for 100 million years after the sun that made that light has gone out, after it's burnt out. So somewhere after our sun burns out, they'll still see the light for 100 million years. Hmm. Where will we be? In the darkness? Spinning in the darkness? Where will we be? Didn't we start in the darkness? Isn't that how it all began? There was light. The continual evolution of the East Coast beat.